Yeah. Good morning. Am I audible clearly? Yes. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. हाँ. Brilliant. Okay. So let's start with today's discussion. Beautiful morning. And let's start with a beautiful topic. We were understanding more about Indian Union budget, how budgets are prepared, what are the different contents of budget. Just to go through a quick overview, the most important fund is consolidated fund, the provisions for which are given in Article 266 of the Constitution of India. It is primarily consisting of all the revenues, all the receipts, and all the expenditures are met from this fund, except for contingency fund. There is a separate fund which requires a president's consent for money to be withdrawn from that fund. And whenever there is a withdrawal of funds from contingency fund, the same has to be replaced again by drawing from consolidated fund. Demand for grants, we had discussed the different demands which are received from the state governments, from the union territories, from the different departments, ministries. So when the budget is okay, appropriation bill was is about when government wants. Please give unlock version of PDF book. I think someone from the students wrote me an email. There is a website, a software called Nitro PDF, using which you will be able to unlock it. He was able to do it successfully. I couldn't try that. There is a trial version available. So I suggest you try it, and if you are able to unlock it, better. Otherwise, I have already returned to the institute. Once I get to know how to unlock that. Okay. Contingency fund, as the name itself says, contingency, it is for some emergency situation. The fund is created. The provisions are under Article 267. So 500 crore fund, which is at the disposal of the president. Without the consent of president, the withdrawal cannot happen. And whenever there is a withdrawal happening, okay, for drive link, send me a personal text. I will reply to that. I had told you again, guys, please save that link for future reference. Okay. Recap, please. We are doing a recap only. So first part is overview of the Indian budget. We had discussed what are the facts with respect to the budgeting. I won't be able to share the link of the software. Please go and search on the Google. Someone who had written an email, if he can put it in the chat box, others can take care of it. Take it from there. I have been told to use English more because the participants are from all across the country, and some of the participants from down south have difficulty in understanding Hindi. Hence, I'm using English as a mode of communication. So please pardon me for that. In between, I will try to use Hindi. That's what the directions I have received from Institute. Now, as I had told last session that in the Constitution of India, the budget word is nowhere appearing. Instead, what is mentioned is annual financial statement. And financial statement is nothing but the budget. Now, this statement consists of three accounts, three parts. No, PM Care Fund is not an example of contingency fund. So there are three parts of the main annual financial statement: consolidated fund, contingency fund, and public account. Now, consolidated fund, as the name itself says, consolidated. It is the most important fund which records. I had told you, please put it to me on a text, Pukraj. I have given you my mobile number. Send it to me on text or WhatsApp. I will reply to you. We shouldn't use the class time for such things. I have already given you my contact details. Yes. Repeating gross domestic product won't be possible, dear. I think you can check with Institute. They will be able to help you with the recordings. I have shared the presentation already on the link, or else you can go through the link and send it to me personal chat. I will reply to that. All the queries with respect to the topics which we have already discussed, I would suggest you send me a WhatsApp message. I will reply to that. But we cannot use the class time for that for that discussion, right? Check with Institute. They are recording the sessions, so they will be coming up with some kind of system. I've already given. In the end of this session, I will again post it. Okay, so that's about consolidated fund. I will not look at the chat box for some time. I will reply to all in the end. So it's kind of becoming a distraction now. Okay. So consolidated fund is more about the fund which records all the receipts and expenditures of the government, uh, except two funds, which is contingency and public account. All other expenditures are from this fund only. So public account is primarily all the money which government has collected from the general public through PF or other schemes, and that money is payable back to the public. So it is kind of uh, held by government, and they cannot use that money. So it's just parked with the government. As regards contingency fund is concerned, it is a fund which has been created for exceptional circumstances. Voice not coming. Others, please confirm. Am I audible? It's coming. Okay. So those who are not able to hear, maybe issue is with the bandwidth at your end. Please check. Okay. Now, demand for grants is whenever the budget is presented, as I told you last time, the budget preparation starts with first estimating what is going to be the GDP of the country, which means first the department understands how much fund will be available for the government to utilize. And they take the base of last year's GDP and calculate how much is going to be your voice is clear from my end here. Check with your internet connection. Maybe the net worth is low. Because some are saying all okay, some are saying not coming. So probably the internet connection is the issue at your end. Yeah. And once the government realizes how much fund is available with them, they start preparing the budget. They start preparing their expenditures. Now, before any other expenditure is presented across, the option is given to all the state governments, all the ministries, all the departments that submit your claim, submit your request, how much money you are going to you need it for the next coming year, and are there any new schemes you are going to float. So they submit their demands. Now that demand is discussed and discussed and decided in the parliament. A lot of discussion happens why this demand is needed, why this much money is needed, and accordingly, once government finalizes, okay, this much fund has to be allocated to respective state government, it is known as demand for grant. So health ministry, education ministry, each of such ministries will also submit their grant, and those will be discussed and decided upon. So out of the fund collected, if government has planned new schemes, that will be covered in the finance bill. Are they wanting to incur any expenditures on defense, on infrastructure, something which has been planned? Then the demand for grants, and after that, the government also submits for the entire year whatever expenditures they are going to incur through an appropriation bill. So these three become an important part: demand for grants, appropriation bill, and finance bill. Now, finance bill also proposes what are the tax changes or what are the changes government is proposing in the reforms, tax related reforms, that is through finance bill. Now, there is an act also which governs the process of budgeting, and that act talks about how much can be the deficit in the budget. So we'll come to the deficit and then I'll talk more about it. Contingency fund we discussed, public fund also, public account also we discussed, that it is an account where money is parked with the government and government is just acting as a banker. So therefore this is a separate account. This is not mixed with the consolidated fund because this fund is not at the disposal of the government. It is a liability. So hence it is accounted separately. Now, revenue and capital. Now, this difference we need to understand very clearly so that we understand the budgeting process also. Now, like uh, individuals, government also have some expenditures which are of long-term nature, and there are some expenditures which are of short-term nature, which are related to particular year only. Revenue nature expenditure or revenue nature receipt will be something which is pertaining to a particular year. So the salary income we get is a revenue receipt. We have every month, right? That's an income, revenue. But when someone takes a loan from the bank, it's a liability, it's a capital receipt. It has to be repaid. So the difference between revenue receipt and capital receipt will be Revenue receipt is nothing but a income of the person, income of the government. So we have heard this terminology, tax revenue collected by the government is so and so. Now, tax revenue is an income of the government. The primary source of government income for the government is taxes they levy. There is also a non-tax revenue which government collects in the form of different filing fees, stamp duty. No, stamp duty will again come as a part of tax revenue. But government, let's say, has invested in the shares of some public sector undertakings, and those undertakings, those companies, when they declare a dividend to all the shareholders, government also receives their share of income. Now that's what we call it as non-tax revenue of the government. So revenue receipts will be divided into two parts: tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Tax revenue will consist of stamp duty, income tax, indirect taxes, the several fees which government levies. Yes, GST is a tax revenue. Occupy duty was there earlier. Then wherever companies file the forms with Ministry of Corporate Affairs, there is some fees payable. That is all tax revenue. Non-tax revenue will include if government has given loan to a public sector undertaking. So the interest which the company pays to the government. If company has invested in the shares of a company, the government has invested in the shares, or government is a shareholder, then against that, if government is receiving any dividend, it's a tax revenue, it's a duty collected. Clear? So that will all become a part of non-tax revenue. Now, what is expenditure? Revenue expenditure. Revenue expenditure is all those expenditure which pertain to a particular year. If they pertain to the financial year, those are revenue in nature. If the benefit of those expenditures will be derived in more than one accounting year, more than one financial year, that expenditure is what we call it as capital nature expenditure. To give you an example, in the context of individuals, if I have to say, the expenditure we incur on the petrol, the expenditure we incur on our household day-to-day living is a revenue nature expenditure. But when you go and buy a flat, when you go and buy a vehicle for yourself, now that expenditure is a long-term expenditure. The benefit of that expenditure will be derived over a period of time. Hence, that type of expenditures are capital expenditure. So when government incurs expenditure on infrastructure, building of some technology parks, construction of some roads, dams, all these are nothing but a capital nature expenditure of the government. Clear? So this difference is important because in the balance sheet also you will see there are current assets, there are fixed assets. Now current assets is all about the current assets is short-term assets pertaining to that a particular period. All the expenditure which goes to P&L account, profit and loss account, your salaries, your fixed costs, your overheads, sales expenses, all these will come under the category of revenue expenditure. But something which goes to the balance sheet, for example, plant and machinery, your lease, your building, all these will come under the category of capital expenditure. Clear? So the difference of revenue receipt, capital receipt is revenue receipt is those pertaining to a particular year. Primarily will come under tax revenue. But if the receipt is from either sale of an asset. For example, I sold an asset, that is a capital receipt. If I took a loan from a bank, that is a capital receipt. So something which is of a long-term nature, something which is of a nature of creating a liability, that will come under a capital receipt. As regards revenue receipts are concerned, for government there can be two types of revenue receipts. One, tax revenue, and second is non-tax revenue. Tax revenue will include all the taxes, penalties, stamp duties which government collects. But if the receipts are from other sources which is not related to taxation, for example, dividend received from public undertakings, interest receipts are all an example of non-tax revenue of the government. Revenue expenditure means there are so many people working for the government, so their salaries, their monthly maintenance expenses of the offices, printing, stationery, advertisement, all those expenses which are incurred for the travel of the ministries are all nothing but revenue nature expenditure. But when an expenditure is of a long-term nature, for example, construction of roads, construction of any infrastructure project, all these are nothing but the capital nature expenditure, long-term expenditure. Clear? Now, why we have understood these two differences? Because government prepares revenue budget separately, capital budget separately, right? But when it is coming to calculation of how much is the deficit, how much is the surplus, we just combine the two and find out, because ultimately all the expenditures, be it revenue or capital, will be done from consolidated fund only. So consolidated fund will account all the receipts, whether it is revenue or whether it is capital, and all the expenditures, whether it is revenue or whether it is capital, will be incurred from the contingency fund only. Hence, it is important to find out how much is the deficit or surplus. India has always prepared deficit budget. And as I told you earlier, there is a limit up to which the deficit can go. If the deficit cannot be 10%, 20%, because deficit has to be filled by an additional. Now, borrowing is something which government also has to keep a check on. It cannot go beyond a particular limit. So in case of income, in case of individuals also, if your expenditures are more than your income, either you will have to reduce your expenditures or you will have to increase your income. For a short period, like presently when this COVID situation has arisen, people are taking loans to take care of their expenditures, but that cannot be a long-term solution. It is a very, very short-term solution. In the long run, either the expenditures have to be reduced or your income will have to be increased. So the funding of this gap through borrowing is a very, very short-term remedial measure. And government also doesn't want that this the measure of filling up the deficit by borrowing is done by way of it goes beyond a particular percentage. So hence budgeting is crucial. Okay. So revenue budget we discussed, capital budget we discussed. Let's read it once, and if there is anything, I will explain it. All the receipts that in general do not entail sale or creation of assets are included under revenue account. On the receipt side, taxes will be the most important revenue receipts. On the expenditure side, anything that does not result in creation of assets. Creation of asset means a long-term nature expenditure. is revenue expenditure. So salaries, subsidies, interest payments are good examples of revenue expenditure. Capital receipt and capital. All the receipts and expenditures that liquidate or create an asset would in general be under capital account. So liquidate means sell. If the government sells shares in public sector companies, like it did in case of Maruti, it is in effect selling an asset. Selling an asset with capital receipt. The receipts from sale would go under the capital account because that doesn't happen every year. On the other hand, if the government gives someone a loan from which it expects to receive interest, that expenditure would go under capital account. On the other hand, if government gives someone loan from which it expects to receive interest, okay, that is a repetition. In respect of all the funds, the government has to prepare a revenue budget detailing how much will be the revenue receipts and how much will be the revenue expenditure, and also a capital budget detailing therein what is capital receipts and how much will be the capital expenditure. Contingency fund is clearly not that important because public fund is account is important, that gives a view of selected savings and how they are being used, but not that relevant from budget perspective. Okay, we discussed this. What is important is a consolidated fund is the key to budget because that's the fund which we use for all the expenditures. As mentioned in the first part, government has to present a revenue budget and capital budget for all three funds. The revenue account of consolidated fund is split in two parts: receipts and disbursements, simply income and expenditures. Receipts are broadly tax revenue, non-tax revenue, and grants in aid and contributions. So the grants received, if any, will come under the, or any contribution will come under the receipts. So the care fund, what you said, will come under the budgeting process because that will be used for taking care of the expenditures. Preparing a budget is extremely tedious and a lengthy process. It begins with the budget division issuing circular to all ministries, states, union territories, autonomous bodies, departments, and the defense forces who are asked to submit expenditure estimates for the upcoming years. Every department, every ministry is submitted a letter. Please submit your claim for next year, how much expenditures you are planning, how much fund you will need. Extensive consultation are held between the union ministries and the Department of Expenditure of Finance Ministry once the estimates have been submitted. Sales is a revenue receipt. In the meantime, the Department of Economic Affairs and the Department of Revenue meet stakeholders such as farmers, businessmen. There are a lot of associations, MCCI. So through these trade associations, foreign institutional investors, economists, several civil groups. So the survey is done, meetings are happened, which are called as pre-budget meetings. And then a decision is taken what shall be the final on tax related proposals. Proposals are discussed with the Prime Minister before the budget is finally prepared. Now, budget presentation speech comprises the following parts. First, annual financial statement, then demand for grants, appropriation, finance bill, then macroeconomic framework, the GDP, GNP, where we are going. Medium term fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is something which relates to the government policy for taxes, tax reforms. Then expenditure profile, how much is the expenditure planned in which sector, how much percentage of expenses being done or we done. Then a budget is presented, expenditure budget, and then a receipt budget is prepared. Okay. Now the difference between the receipts and expenditure is what we call it as deficit or surplus. Okay, this we discussed revenue receipt, revenue budget, capital budget. Okay. So we have discussed this. I suggest you go through it. Let's come to fiscal deficit part. Concepts we have understood. Go through the content. Uh, if there are any questions, let me know. Now, fiscal deficit. Now, this fiscal deficit is nothing but the difference between the income of the government or the receipts and the expenses of the government. A fiscal deficit is a shortfall in government's income compared with its spending. Now, this deficit is always pronounced in terms of percentage, and that percentage is calculated of GDP. So, how much is the deficit? If you hear 2.5% or 3% is the deficit of government, now that 3% is nothing but the percentage of the GDP. So this is calculated as a percentage of gross domestic product simply as total dollars spent in excess of income. In either case, the income figure includes only taxes and other revenues and excludes money borrowed to make up the shortfall. That talks about only the income. In other words, fiscal deficit is difference between total income of the government. Here the words used is income and not the receipts. Total taxes and non-debt capital receipts. Non-debt means something which is not creating a liability. So what will be the example of non-debt capital receipt? Anything which has received by the government by selling an asset. If government was having a stake in one company and they have sold that stake to a private player and against that some money is received, now that receipt is a capital receipt because it is from realization of an asset, hence it will go to capital. It is a non-debt receipt. There is no liability which is created. So total income will include non-debt capital receipts and its total expenditures. A fiscal deficit situation occurs when the government's expenditure exceeds its income. This difference is calculated both in absolute terms and also as a percentage of gross GDP of the country. A recurring high fiscal deficit means the government has been spending beyond its means. The government describes fiscal deficit of India as excess of total disbursement from the consolidated fund, excluding repayment of debt over total receipts into the fund, excluding the debt receipts during the financial year. Let's discuss this in detail. It describes deficit of India as excess of total disbursement from the consolidated. So whatever withdrawal has happened from consolidated fund minus the total over total receipts into the. Now from the receipts we will exclude, from the payments we will exclude payment of debt. If some part of the fund is used to repay the existing loan, that's not an expenditure as such. That's a liability which has been cleared. So it will not go to expenditures. Total disbursement excluding repayment of debt. So if 1000 crores were taken and out of 1000 crores, 100 crores was towards repayment of an existing loan, then how much is the expenditure? So 900 crores. So 900 crores is the total expenditure over total receipts excluding debt receipts. So total receipts, let's say, were 800 crores. Out of that, 200 crores was the debt Disbursement is transfer. So when you go and take a loan, they ask you the question, disbursement कब चाहिए? Which means when are you going to draw the funds, or when will bank disburse the loan? Which means when will government or bank will release the loan, transfer the funds, right? So total receipts, let's say, were 800 crores. Out of that, 200 were from the capital receipts, debt receipts. Government had accepted public debts. So 600 is the revenue receipts. Now 900 is the expenditure, 600 is the revenue receipts. The difference 300 will be the deficit. Clear? So what is the element of fiscal deficit? When you calculate deficit, you also consider capital expenditure, but you don't consider the capital receipts. So the revenue receipts deficit, which is the difference between government's current or revenue expenditure and total current receipts, that is excluding borrowing. And second is capital expenditure. Because ultimately capital expenditure is also something which they have to, government has to plan, and they have to meet those expenditures. So while calculating what is the total deficit, that expenditure also has to be considered. But you don't consider the capital receipt because the government needs to find out how much of the expenditures are being met through borrowed sources. Hence, it is important that we don't consider the borrowings, but we consider the capital expenditure to find out what is the gap to be fulfilled. So this is how the calculation is done. First, you add all the revenue receipts, which include corporation tax, income tax, custom duty, excise duties, GST, all the taxes will come here. Plus non-tax revenues, interest received, dividend received, external grants, if any, other non-tax revenue, receipts of union territories. So government receives money from the state governments also. Sometimes the money is received by the state government, but the in central government also has a share in that. So that will come here. Then you deduct the expenditures, which is revenue expenditures, capital expenditure, interest on the loan which government has taken, grant in aid for creation of capital assets, any grants which government has given by way of subsidy or any other mode. If they have given any grants for creation of asset, that will also be considered. And when you deduct, so revenue receipts plus tax revenue is equals to total receipts less expenditures get deficit. Simple maths, nothing complicated here. Here they have given the exhibit, just explain how the deficit is calculated. The data is given for actuals for 17-18, then budgeted for 18-19, again revisited and revised, budgeted for 19-20, and percentage of changes are being calculated. So this is just for your understanding purposes. So you can see revenue deficit is this much, fiscal deficit is more, percentage of GDP. Primary deficit is nothing but the gap between this primary deficit which has come. Okay, let me check and come back to you. Clear? Okay, this is good. Okay. Okay, so we are through with this chapter. As regards exam point of view is concerned, understanding the difference between capital and revenue is important. The questions might come whether this is a capital receipt or revenue receipt. So give a little focus on that. What is capital, what is revenue? Then the questions from these type different parts of the budgeting, appropriation bill, finance bill, the questions can come. And most importantly, we saw the initial overview where the facts are given. So those facts, the questions are expected from this part also. It's very small chapter, easy chapter. Let me see what are the questions now which have come in the chat. Then we will go to the next session. Budget not necessary as such. Ketki. Explain with numbers again, please. Okay. Numbers. What is consolidated fund? We discussed that a little while ago. No, explain it again. Numbers. Okay, numbers I will take again. Terminologies. We discussed the terminologies right in the beginning. Disbursement. How much percentage? Table again. Table again. Okay. So a lot of questions with respect to table again. Okay, I will take that. So which table you was talking about? This table. Let's understand through some numbers. Okay. Consolidated fund is nothing but a fund which from where all the expenditures are met. So it's like your bank account where you put all your money. From that account you enter all your expenditures. So that's what consolidated fund is. Annual financial statement is nothing but the entire budget, which consists of three parts: consolidated fund, contingency fund, and public account. Deficit once more. Okay. So look at it from the government, look at it from an individual point of view, I think, and then you will be able to understand it. If I have to give you an example, if an income of a person is 1 lakh rupees per month, then he will plan his expenses keeping it within that amount of 1 lakh rupees. So in a month, if he has to pay some rent, he has to pay some bills, electricity bills, utility bills, then he will pay for his food consumption. And let's say after all these expenses, he is left with 30,000 rupees. Now that 30,000 rupees, if he decides that I will buy a vehicle for myself, then this 30,000 he used 25,000 to buy a vehicle. Now at the end of the month, some emergency arises and some expenses on the medicine has to be incurred, and that amount is, let's say, 10,000 rupees. So I received a salary of 1 lakh rupees in my account. My routine daily expenditures are deducted first. So I'm received with 40,000. 40,000 revenue, yes. Now that 40,000 goes to, let's say I incur 25 for my vehicle. I'm left with 15. That's a capital expenditure. This is revenue expenditure. This is capital. Oh, this is revenue, sorry. Revenue receipts. So 1 lakh received, salary 60,000, today maintenance 25,000 for creation of an asset, left with 15,000. Now in this 15,000, some expenses have to be incurred, let's say medical. Expenditure has come 25,000. The deficit is of 10,000. The bill is 25. I have only 15,000 rupees in my account. 10,000 is short. Now, either I decide that I will sell my phone or my laptop or my vehicle. When I sell my phone, let's say I sell it at 15,000. This is a capital receipt. On debt, capital receipt. So I meet my 10,000 shortfall by selling a capital asset and creating a receipt for myself. But let's say next month also something same happens. I'm still left with 10,000 as a deficit. But now I have nothing to sell. There is no option of this. This is not possible. So from where this money will be covered? So I go to the bank. So bank gives me 10,000 rupees as a loan. I meet my expenditures. This is also a capital receipt. But this is debt. So clear between non-debt and debt capital receipt. When I sell an asset and cover up my expenditures, that is non-debt capital receipt. I sold an asset and I have earned source of my, I would not say revenue, but I raised some money by selling an asset. That is a non-debt capital receipt. No liability is being created. Your phone is not new, so it can call receipts or not. It is an asset. If it is an asset and you are selling an asset, it is a capital receipt. Clear? When a bank loan, I have taken a bank loan, numericals will not come for this chapter at least. But when I take a loan and not sell an asset, again I am receiving funds, but it is a liability. Yes, it is a liability. So it is a debt, capital risk, but it is a debt. So that difference is clear. This is with respect to individuals where normally income is more than the expenditures. We don't prepare deficit budget, we prepare surplus budget. Right? Or in one of the month there can be deficit, but not every month, month on month, there cannot be deficit. But in government's case, their expenditures are more, their income is less, which means they have to take money as a borrowing. When the receipts are more, let's say this is tax revenue, these are revenue nature, expenditure, demand, grants, all are met. Now, the remaining 40,000, 60,000 is a capital expenditure. Defense equipment has to be purchased, air jets, air fighter planes, some capital expenditure on infrastructure development, construction of road, all has to be incurred. So government is left with 40,000 crores. The expenditure planned for capital is 60,000. There is this deficit of 20,000. Now that deficit will be met through some liability. So government will take loan either from World Bank or from Reserve Bank of India. They will take the loan. Right? Now this is how the government will plan their expenditure or plan their deficit. Clear? Okay, now let's move on to the next chapters. So we will go to fifth lesson first and then come back to fourth. So go to the fifth chapter, Indian economy. Give me a minute. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute. I'll be back. Yeah. Okay. So let's go on to the next topic, which is Indian economy. We have we are discussing lesson number 5 first, and then we will go to lesson number 4. I will prefer a WhatsApp message. You can text me. I will respond to that. Okay. Is clear. Can you please show the number which you last explained, Nikita? Want the number? This is it. Will you update extra questions for budget? Can you please give your number? I will give it to you. This is my number. Sir, can you please show the number which you last explained? Can we practice graph? Yes. I will update extra questions. Whatever is there is this in only. Government prepare deficit budget because our expenses are more. And as I said, there is a law which deals with this subject. There is an act passed by the parliament. 60,000 is the highlight. 60,000 is capital expenditure. What is primary deficit? Okay, primary deficit is primarily the difference between the deficit of current year, excluding the interest payment for the loan which has been taken. So if I have to take the same example, if 60,000 rupees is my revenue expenditure, but out of these 60,000, I'm 5,000 is what I have paid as an interest on loan. Then out of this 60, 55,000 is actually my current year's expenditures. 5,000 is the interest which I have paid for servicing a debt. So out of this 20,000, I will deduct this 5,000. So 15,000 is actually the primary deficit for this year. Clear? That's what we call it as primary deficit. The difference between, I would prefer you to remember the article numbers. Okay, primary deficit is clear. Primary deficit is difference between current year's deficit minus the interest cost on the loan taken by the government. Drive. Okay, let me give you the drive link. And I request all you to please save this drive link, dear. This is the link of the drive. Okay. I have answered all the questions mostly. In case I have missed to answer any question, Anjali, just send me a reminder. I will reply to that. But as far as I remember, replied. But in case I have missed, please. Okay. Let's start the new chapter now. The question, all other questions, send me on the WhatsApp. I will reply. Now we'll start with the Indian economy because we have just discussed the budgeting. I thought let's keep the focus on the Indian economy and then we will go to the financial system. Now, Indian economy, first part, we are going to discuss about the three main sectors. So primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. We all know what are these sectors. So primary sector in India is agriculture and allied activities. Secondary sector is the manufacturing, and the third most important from the economy point of view is the service sector, tertiary sector. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss some of the measures or initiatives which government has taken in the recent past to support the respective sectors. This drive is not related to a particular chapter. This drive is where I will be sharing all the materials. So no separate link for separate chapter. It's going to be the same link. I request you to keep visiting frequently. In case I put anything, you will not to know. I will upload MCQs from time to time. For example, the third series of MCQ, I will upload it today. So you can go through that also. Now I'm minimizing the chat box, and then I will again, before we conclude, we'll visit again the chat box for the questions. Now this chapter has some facts which are about the past, some measures which government has taken, some numbers are there, and you might get a little disturbed, or I would say not disturbed, but little tensed looking at the numbers which are used in the chapter. And the obvious question might come to your mind, so do we need to remember all these numbers? So it's very difficult to answer this question because you never know from where the examiner will ask the question. But for sure, I think the questions will come where based on certain facts. So I also understand it will be a little difficult to remember all these numbers, but the important ones we will have to remember for sure. Now, which are the important ones, which while discussing I will tell you obviously, but yeah, so this is it. Is it a link to open drive? Yes. It's open for all. Anyone with the link will be able to open it. Let's start with the facts first. There is nothing much to explain as such. It talks about all the steps which government has taken in the past. So wherever I will need to explain, I will elaborate on it. Otherwise, we will just rush through because there are some concepts which I want to explain in this chapter. So first, agricultural is the primary source of livelihood. About 58% of India's population. The gross value added by agriculture, forest, fishing is estimated at rupees 18.53 trillion in financial year 18. No, I will not delete anything from the drive till your exams are over. So don't worry about it. So as we know, India is a country which relies too much on the agriculture sector. Almost more than half of the population of the country is employed through this sector, the agriculture sector. And hence it becomes important from the government point of view also to keep on taking necessary measures. And in this time also, COVID-19 situation, government has been taking few measures to support the farmers. For example, a recent decision which they took was to remove the food items, certain food items from the list of essential commodities so that the farmer can fetch the market price and not the controlled price. So that was again a measure to help the farmers, agriculture sector. Plus, time and again, government has been trying to do a trade-off between liberalizing the policy with respect to foreign investment in agricultural sector. So still the policy is very, very restricted. The investment in agriculture sector is not allowed in all the activities. It is allowed only in few, but it is not open for any foreign investment. So this sector is still, I would say, a sector which is regulated, where government keeps a close watch. They want foreign investment to come, but not in core agriculture, but processing of the food products. So there are two parts. One is agriculture, where actual farming happens. The second is the processing of the agricultural produce. So processing is something where the government expects investments because processing requires infrastructure. Agriculture, because it requires agricultural land to be procured, and no government or no country will want that the agricultural land in the country is owned by some foreign investors. So even if someone is an NRI or a person of Indian origin who has settled abroad, he also can acquire an agricultural property only if it is inherited to him from his ancestors. So keeping this in the background, if we really think about which sectors can government open, so the processing of food products, and that is how the policies are designed. For agricultural activity, no investment is actually clear. So what are the major investments according to DPIT? Now, Department of Industrial Promotion, this department also gives approval for startups. So same DPIT. Indian food processing has cumulatively attracted FDI. So again, you will see the words used are processing industry has used attracted FDI of about $9.08 billion between April 2000 and March 2009. Now, these facts are easily available on the RBI website also, any government website with respect to the agriculture sector. Some major investments in agriculture are investments worth rupees 8,500 crores have been announced in India for ethanol production. First mega food park in Rajasthan was inaugurated in March 18. Agri-food startups in India received funding of 1.66 billion. Now, this is again an area where a lot of startups are coming. People are realizing the importance of good organic food products. So, a lot of startups, we also work with few startups who do a lot of work in this sector. So, agri-food startups is again a very, very interesting and a hot trend right now. Yesterday also, when the Kiran Bedi was speaking, the respected lady, she also focused on we need to focus more on our sustainable development, and agriculture in that plays a very, very important role. In 2017, agricultural sector in India witnessed 18 merger and amalgamation deals worth $251 million. Now again, not audible. Check once again. I think it's clear. Now, this is one sector where I think there is a lot of scope of improvement also, a lot of scope of development. Because if you go to a country like Israel, their farm is of 800 hectares or 500 hectares, only two people manage it. So they have developed technology. Ethanol is a kind of chemical. It's a chemical So two people manage the entire farm. So they have technologies with respect to agriculture developed at such high level where M&A is mergers and amalgamations, mergers and acquisitions, you can say. So clear. So therefore, it also symbolizes that there is a need for a lot of development, and India has been witnessing, or the ministers are witnessing the foreign countries, especially Israel, where they have experienced or developed some technologies. My battery is low. Okay, I think we are good for this remaining part of this session. Thanks for pointing out. What is M&A? M&A is mergers and acquisitions. Yes. Okay. Some major government initiatives to support the agriculture sector. Prime Minister of India launched Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana. Transferred 2021 crores to the bank accounts of more than 10 million beneficiaries on February 24th, 2019 to support the farmers. Has Government has come out with transport and marketing assistance TMA scheme. Why important transfer and marketing? Because this sector, I think, has been exploited by the players. Because farmers, we have been hearing again and again that they don't fetch the right price for their produce, and the people in the chain who take the benefit. Plus, the commodity is a perishable commodity, so transport and supply chain management becomes very, very important. Hence, government realizing the need to interrupt in that area have come out with transport and marketing assistance to provide financial assistance for transport and marketing of agricultural products in order to boost agriculture exports. Degree exports policy 2018 was approved by Government of India in December 18. The new policy aims to increase India's agricultural export $60 billion by 2022 and the US $100 billion in the next few years with a stable trade policy regime. So focus is on exporting from the agricultural sector also to boost the economy. And I think in this situation, one sector which has been not affected severely is agricultural sector, and that's what the union minister related to agriculture also said, that the sector has not been impacted much because of the. I already told you about the some facts you will have to remember. Now, I don't expect, or the examiner also won't expect, to remember each and every amount. It's just not practically possible. But the important ones we will have to remember. In September 18, the Government of India announced 15,053 crores procurement policy named Pradhan Mantri Annadata Aay Sarakshan Abhiyan (ASHA), under which states can decide the compensation scheme and can also partner with private agencies to ensure fair prices for farmers in the country. In September 18, Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs approved a 5,500 crores assistance package for sugar industry. So a new package for sugar industry separately. Government of India is going to provide 2,000 crore for computerization of primary agricultural credit societies. to ensure cooperatives are benefited through digital technology. So cooperative society is a form of organization, and we see a lot in the rural sector as a form of organization. So we will come to credit societies when we discuss the financial system. But right now, you just focus on that there is a credit society. Credit society is a kind of bank, you can say, related to agriculture. Now, as we have seen the digitalization happening in all other sectors, the government also wants the digitalization to happen in the rural segment, primary agricultural credit society, and for that some funds have been allocated. With an aim to boost innovation and entrepreneurship in agriculture, Government of India is introducing new Agri Udan program to mentor startups and to enable them to connect with potential investors. So startup is something which is a buzzword in the present economic scenario, including the MSME sector. Now, government is focusing on more and more innovation and invention or creative methods to come up to support the agricultural sector, and whatever support is required with respect of mentoring them, providing them necessary infrastructure, connecting the players with the potential investors. Now, that is something which a government is playing a role to bridge this gap by setting up a lot of incubation centers for the startups. Government of India has launched Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana with an investment of 50,000 crores aimed at development of irrigation sources for providing a permanent solution from drought. Right now, the questions from this sector can come with respect to incubation center. I'll tell you. So the questions from this portion can come that they will tell you which yojana or which plan of the government was focused at development of irrigation sources, and then they will give you few options can be Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, Agri Udan program, or Pradhan Mantri Asha Abhiyan. Okay, so more than the numbers, I would say focus on remembering the objective of different plans, and it's there are many we are going to discuss. For each sector there are many such plans, initiatives taken. So for what objective which plan was initiated or it floated, that also we will have to remember. I won't be able to answer this question, Kushi. It's every program is important. Incubation center means a center where the startups are provided. No idea. Ayush really don't have any idea about password. We have study all the notes in PDF. Yes. Thank you. I have connected the charger, so thank you for pointing it out. Incubation center is a center where startups are provided basic facilities like infrastructure. So it's a common building where each startup will be given a kind of room to start their operations. They will also be provided some interns from the colleges. So normally the colleges have started coming up with startups, incubation centers, so that the students of the college becomes the intern to the startups. Plus, anyone who has an idea while a student is also provided a facility that if you want to take this idea to the next level, not in special economic zone. primarily around colleges or some those are approved by the government, can be an independent building, maybe in a government building. A lot of incubation centers were floated when this Software Technology Parks of India scheme under STPI unit scheme. So not in special economic zone, but yes, STPI, there were a lot of incubation centers floated. There are some private, there are some government funded incubation centers available. No, Saturday won't be last lecture. There are 10 sessions going to happen. I think this is the fifth one. Now, Government of India plans to triple the capacity of food processing sector in India from current 10% of agricultural produce and has committed to rupees 6,000 crores as investment for mega food parks in the country. One such park was inaugurated in Rajasthan. We discussed a little while ago. As a part of the scheme of agro marine processing and development of agro processing clusters, Sampada. The government of India has allowed 100% foreign direct investment. So FDI stands for foreign direct investments. What is FDI? We are going to discuss a part of this chapter. Answers will be provided. Don't worry. Next sector is secondary sector, which is manufacturing. Manufacturing has emerged as one of the high growth sectors, and Modi government, when they started their tenure, Narendra Modi came up with the scheme which has become of a special importance now, which is Make in India. And now, what we are seeing in the global economic scenario, the situation of China, more countries are preferring as India to be their manufacturing base. So this is again going to be of huge importance in the near future. How India uh, responds to this opportunity, and we have seen a lot of discussions happening on this in the news. That will India become a new manufacturing base for the companies across the globe? And let's see what happens in the future. But I feel that this is a great opportunity for the country, and if we can really capitalize it by liberalizing the processes, making it easy for the foreign players to come to India and do business, I think we will see a good growth in the manufacture sector. Again, it there has to be a trade-off between liberalization and, I would say, keeping the policies rigid so that not everything is taken for granted. This is the fifth session, dear, the second for this week. With the COVID situation, we have also realized, with the lockdown specifically, that globalization is something which we had focused, but is the new focus going to be localization? By being self-reliant, now Atmanirbhar is nothing but, this is chapter 5. Chapter 4 we will discuss after this chapter. Don't worry, we'll cover each and every chapter. Don't worry at all. So let's see what happens with the manufacture sector. What are the major investments? With the help of Make in India drive, India is on the path of becoming the hub for high-tech manufacturing as global giants such as GE, Siemens, HTC, Toshiba, Boeing have either set up or in the process of setting up manufacturing plants in India. Attracted by India's market of more than a billion consumers and increasing purchasing power. Cumulatively, foreign direct investment in India's manufacture sector reached $76.82 billion during April to June 2018. India has become one of the most attractive destinations for investment in manufacturing sector. Some of the major investments and developments in the recent past are: as of December 18, a premium smartphone maker OnePlus is anticipating that India will become its largest research and development base within the next 3 years. India's manufacturing PMI, now PMI is an index, stood at 51.7 in May 2019. So companies start to spend more on hiring and anticipate good growth in future prospects, which is again going to. You are free to make your own notes. How it has to be done, I will show something in the next session. Okay. PMI is what? Okay. PMI means Purchasing Managers Index. So as I said, it's an index. What is M&A? Mergers and acquisition. As of October 18, Filatex India, a polymer manufacturer, is planning to undertake forward integration by setting up fabric manufacturing and processing unit. As of August 18, IISc, Society of Innovation and Development, and Wipro are collaborating to produce India's first industrial scale 3D printing machine. This is something which is coming up very fast, 3D printing. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest go on a Google and see what a 3D machine looks like and what are the output it can produce. You will be really amazed. I have personally visited one and I have seen one in operation. It's really, really amazing. For its commercial vehicles, Ashok Leyland is utilizing machine learning algorithms and its newly created telematics unit to improve the performance of vehicle driver and so on. So a lot of technology integration is happening. AI is coming up big. We have seen artificial intelligence. So in the manufacturing sector also we are. It's 9. I think okay. So let's take a pause here and we will continue this in the next session. We'll complete this chapter in the next session. And I will also show how to do a little bit of self-study, how to create your own notes in the next session. So timings have changed. It is 9:30, 7:30 to 9. And I will upload few MCQs today and the answers for the earlier one. Okay. So thank you so much, and I look forward to connect with you again on Saturday morning, 7:30 a.m. sharp. God bless you. Have a wonderful day ahead.